There are moments when a single choice splits a family in half. Moments when the truth pulls the floor out from beneath people who believe they were standing on solid ground. Sometimes that moment arrives quietly, almost politely, as if giving everyone one last chance to turn away. Other times, it crashes in like a storm that refuses to wait another second before we dive in. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to see how far this conversation is reaching. It begins on an ordinary afternoon that feels almost painfully calm. At 3:42 p.m., inside a secured evidence room that usually smells of dust and fluorescent lighting, a teenage girl pulls a small plastic pouch from a shelf where it absolutely should have remained. The bag holds cocaine collected from a major drug operation. Cameras blink quietly from the ceiling. They witness everything with cold, indifferent accuracy. 17-year-old Sophia Reynolds slips the evidence into her expensive backpack. The movement is practiced, almost elegant, as if she has convinced herself that the theft is nothing more than a rebellious thrill. She does not look up at the cameras. She does not worry about fingerprints. She does not consider consequences. Why would she? Her father, Detective Mark Reynolds, built a reputation over 30 years that could convince anyone that the Reynolds name stood for integrity. But integrity means nothing to someone who thinks. Consequences are negotiable. Sophia walks out of the evidence room using an access card that does not belong to her. She swipes it with the same casual confidence that she uses to unlock her private school dormitory. The door clicks open obediently, unaware that it is granting access to the beginning of a catastrophe. By 4:10 p.m., Detective Lieutenant Sarah Chun begins her routine inventory check. Evidence logs rarely lie. Numbers always expose the truth no matter how deeply someone tries to hide it. She notices the missing bag almost immediately. There is no confusion, no misplacement, nothing that invites a gentle explanation. The item is marked as part of Operation Northside, a carefully built case targeting high school dealers whose actions harmed kids far younger than Sophia. Losing even a small piece of this evidence is not a clerical error. It is a disaster. She reviews security footage. She sees Sophia. Clear image. Clear face. Clear theft. The kind of clarity that removes every doubt and replaces it with a sinking sense of betrayal. Meanwhile, Sophia heads to her elite private school, Petton Academy. Tuition costs more than some families earn in a year. Students carry designer notebooks and store credit cards and wallets more expensive than their teachers' salaries. It is the kind of environment where arrogance sometimes grows faster than maturity. By 5 p.m., Sophia is already showing off the drugs to her friends, bragging about the purity, laughing about how easily it can be sold, whispering careless remarks about her father's badge. She assumes no one will notice one missing bag. She assumes that she is untouchable. Assumptions collapse quickly. When Sarah Chun calls Detective Mark Reynolds into her office, she tells him that she needs him to watch something. He stands beside her with the same posture he uses at crime scenes, bracing himself for something unpleasant but manageable. The video begins. He watches his daughter enter the evidence room using his card. He watches her slide the cocaine into her backpack. He watches the lies she has not yet told him take shape in real time. He sinks into a chair as if the air has suddenly doubled in weight. "That is my card," he says. His voice barely rises above a whisper. "Mark, this must be investigated immediately," Lieutenant Chun replies. There is no anger in her tone, only disappointment. And perhaps something else, a firm understanding that the law must remain the law, even when it slices through personal lives. Mark goes home with the video still replaying in his mind. He sits in the living room waiting for Sophia, rehearsing 1,000 versions of the conversation. None of them feels strong enough to confront the truth he must deliver. At 6:15 p.m., she walks in wearing the same expensive clothes she used earlier to commit her crime. She sees her father's expression and knows instantly that something is wrong. But she does not guess the truth. That level of imagination requires accountability she has never developed. He tells her to sit. "You stole cocaine from my evidence room," he says. Her face tightens. But her voice tries to glide past the accusation. She denies. She manipulates. She claims fear. She pretends ignorance. She asks whether the footage could be edited. Each new lie falls heavier than the last, yet she continues piling them until the weight becomes unbearable. When the truth finally cuts through her performance, she begins pleading. But the pleading arrives too late. Her father has already dialed his captain. He speaks with a level of honesty that shatters them both. Sophia hears every word. She hears the loyalty he still tries to show the badge. Even while his heart cracks open, federal agents arrive within hours. Sophia sits beside a high-priced attorney whose polished confidence cannot erase the fact that the evidence is overwhelming. Cameras do not lie. Theft logs do not lie. And her own bragging words, captured in texts and overheard by classmates, certainly do not lie. The FBI outlines the consequences with professional calm. She stole evidence from a federal investigation. She sold controlled substances to minors. She obstructed justice without understanding the seriousness of her actions. Wealthy families panic as her buyers come into question. Suddenly, the safety of privilege dissolves, replaced with the sting of reality. 3 weeks later, when she stands in a juvenile courtroom before Judge Frank Caprio, the room is filled with parents who never imagined their children could be connected to a federal crime. Sophia wears conservative clothing chosen not because she respects the court, but because her lawyer told her to. Judge Caprio looks at the mountain of evidence on his bench. The folders are thick, filled with reports, statements, footage, and consequences. He does not look angry. He looks tired. Tired of seeing teenagers raised on entitlement and illusions of immunity. He listens to the lawyer speak. He listens to Sophia's shaky explanation. He listens to Detective Reynolds apologize for a failure he carried alone for far too long. He studies the girl who believes she could treat crime as entertainment and law enforcement as a personal playground. When he announces the sentence, 18 months in juvenile detention, followed by years of probation and hundreds of hours of community service, the entire courtroom gasps. People whisper. Sophia cries. Her lawyer protests, but the judge does not change his mind. He knows what she needs. And it is not another layer of privilege. What happens next is not a story of immediate transformation. It is a slow unraveling of arrogance, replaced bit by bit with humility. Sophia enters detention terrified, angry, and bewildered that nobody is bending the rules for her. She meets teenagers whose lives were shaped by poverty, violence, and environments nothing like her own. She listens to stories that force her to confront cruelty she has never experienced. She begins to understand that her bad decisions were amplified by a life that shielded her from consequences for too long. Her letters home begin stiff and defensive. Over time they soften. She writes about ethics. She writes about evidence. She writes about the people harmed by drugs she once treated like a party accessory. She apologizes without expecting forgiveness. Her father visits monthly. Their conversations are uncomfortable at first but gradually become honest. They talk about respect, responsibility, and the difference between love and blind protection. He tells her that he failed to hold her accountable early in life. She tells him that she finally understands the difference between authority and integrity, asterisk. When she begins community service in the evidence room, the very place where the disaster began, she feels the weight of every box she handles. Supervisors explain what each piece represents: hours of undercover work, risks officers willingly took, victims waiting for justice. She listens. She learns. She changes, asterisk. A year later, she returns to court for her progress evaluation. She stands before Judge Caprio not as the arrogant teenager who believed nothing could touch her, but as a young woman who has learned the value of accountability. She speaks with sincerity. She admits that detention saved her. The judge believes her, asterisk. The remainder of her sentence passes with steady improvement. When she is released, she chooses to study criminal justice. She wants to use her experience to help others avoid her mistakes. She volunteers at youth centers. She talks openly about privilege, responsibility, and consequences. She describes the moment she realized that living without boundaries is not freedom. It is destruction. Asterisk. Her father slowly rebuilds his reputation, not through punishment, but through honesty. His department promotes him, acknowledging that integrity matters most when it is painful, asterisk. Together, they speak at police academies about the risks of family entitlement. Sophia stands beside the badge she once abused and explains what can happen when access is treated as advantage instead of responsibility, asterisk. Years later, she graduates college. When she walks across the stage in her gown, Detective Reynolds feels the kind of pride that comes not from perfection, but from redemption. She hugs him tightly and whispers, "Justice protected me more than your badge ever could." And he believes her. If this,